Do, 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 do. Oh, and I think we are live. I think we're live, brother.
All right, it's exciting.
It's
Happy to be alive.
happy times, right? Happy times.
I'm happy to be live and alive. How about that?
Hey, let's rock, brother. All right.
So
But
we're gonna
look,
fix the Pistons today. Is
we,
that what we're doing?
that's what we're going to do. Look,
Okay.
I'm trying to bring everything up here right now, but we are going to fix the Detroit Pistons. We're going to try and make sure that everything that they've done to this point, that they can take advantage of this rather than actually fumbling the bag. Like, I think that there's been critical times in Detroit Pistons histories where they've done things to try and take a step forward, but they ultimately fumbled the bag by not capitalizing. Like when they traded Chauncey Billups for Allen Iverson.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
was a mistake.
that was that was a mistake. I felt like if the only way you can even salvage a mistake like that is by spending the money correctly, and they just didn't. So sometimes it's not necessarily about moving on from a player, but it's about the proper assessment of who that player is to your roster. And if you do move on, how do you upgrade them? And so at one point in this conversation, I want to be able to go through our bench,
Okay.
because I think that that's where the upgrades are going to have to happen. We've seen that the last two times the Pistons made the playoffs, it was depth that kind of did them in. You remember the Stanley Johnson years when they said Stanley Johnson was in LeBron James' head, the most competitive sweep ever and all that. And the Pistons went out there against the Cavs, and the starters played valiantly. They fought hard. There was absolutely no depth, none at all. So it's like, they can't. I don't want to see this squad kind of run into the same demise as those last two playoff teams who just kind of rested on, hey, well, we're good enough. And I also don't want to see this squad kind of trying to overshoot and do what they did in the past, like giving up on players too soon or going out there and with their draft capital and with their free agent capital, ultimately making the wrong decisions. And so I want to get there eventually, but I wanted to talk about this kind of Troy Weaver season first, man. It's this time of year where I tell people all the time, look, you guys will always complain towards the end of the season, but when we get around draft time, it's a holiday in Detroit sports. It's absolute holiday. It's a time where people all of a sudden their hopes are renewed, their optimism is back, it's restored. And people
Sounds
are
like
trying to look
Lion
ahead.
fans every
So,
year.
wait a second, wait a second, wait
Every
a second.
June, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna win this year."
Bro, are you telling me as the Lions are on this ascent where everyone is saying that they're a good team, they're gonna win the division, they could potentially, host this playoff team and whatnot, that the Piston fans are now the new Lions fans? That the Pistons are the new Lions?
Well, let's establish one thing: Pistons are not a good team. Let's establish that. They still have a long way to go. And you're talking about the Pistons bench. I didn't know the Pistons had a bench. I mean, not to be rude, but
That's what
yeah,
we're talking about.
they need upgrades all around. And I am a guy that wants veteran leadership on this team. Um, they're not talented enough and experienced enough to be considered serious.
Mm.
So, did you hear? And you know what? Can I correct myself or change my mind?
Hey, talk about it.
Every time somebody brought up Draymond Green, I said, "Nah, don't do it. Don't do it. He's a clown." Which I think he's still a clown, but I think I'd do it now. I'd do it now because one, he's a vet. B, how's he going to ruin this team? C, I've known him since high school. I don't think he wants to ruin the Pistons. The trouble might be, is he going to be motivated here because he's already played for championships. He expects to contend for championships every year when he was at Golden State. Now he's going to be with a team that's saying, "Hey, if we play, everything goes right, we can make the playoffs." And Draymond Green might be like, "Dude, serious? I came in for that." But he'll get paid and he'll be motivated. And he's from Saginaw. A lot of guys can't play for your
Can't play with
home
it,
state.
yeah, at
He's one of
home.
those guys that can.
I think that his ego, his confidence, the way he sees himself, and wanting to come home as a champion and remain that way will play heavy on Draymond Green. It just seems to be the type of guy that he is. I was somebody that's been waffling back and forth on this kind of Draymond Green thing. We're talking about Troy Weaver season and free agency of it all, trying to make this team better. And with the pick of Asar Thompson, before that, I was heavy on, hey, let's pick up Jeremy Grant. But Troy is now saying that Asar Thompson is a guy that they see as being able to defend the other team's best player on the wing, whether that person's in the perimeter or has some ability to get into the paint. That's something that we depended on Jeremy Grant providing. And if they see that in Asar Thompson, I'm like, good. Because I don't necessarily, even though you have a Draymond Green at this stage, I don't necessarily believe you can depend on him to guard your Giannis's of the league. But if you have that guy, then I do believe that Draymond is a perfect complement to come in here with championship pedigree, with the ability to kind of talk to anybody on the squad and tell them what they need to do. It adds another one of those guys with that dog in him. We talk about Isaiah Stewart having that. I believe Marcus Sasser has that. Draymond Green would have that as well. But I know that everybody's favorite right now is this whole aspect of Cameron Johnson, who they believe is the better fit in terms of the free agent that you should spend the money on. I keep going back and forth because I hear Troy saying that defense is the value. Got the opportunity to ask him that several times around the draft, the post-draft press conference, and then at the Asar Thompson and Marcus Sasser press conference. Got to effectively ask him, is defense going to be the focus, and is loading up on multiple players in this first round who can bring that defensive versatility, any aspect of your focus? And both times he was effectively like, yes, yes. So it's just like, when
Let me
man,
warn you, young buck.
tell me.
Coaches and general managers always sell the defense. They always say, "Oh, we're going to play defense. We're going to emphasize that," and then they do it sometimes, and sometimes they don't. Um, it depends. If he's bringing in a guy like Green, then he's serious about it. The fact that he got Asar seems to me that he's serious about it. And Cameron Johnson, I think that would help them defensively. But the problem is New Jersey's got to say, okay, cool, you can have him. So he may not come here because New Jersey can match.
Yep. Yeah. And I saw the reports where that New Jersey was potentially looking to match up to maybe 20 million surrounding the Pistons. And this is what I thought was interesting. They're not only going to have to pay the Detroit tax, but they're now going to have to pay what's considered the restricted free agent tax, which is the amount you have to go above. This isn't the Jeremy Grant situation where this player is just kind of able to pick where they want to go. This is a situation where if you pay him 20 million, which that even might be more than he's worth a year, well, the Nets are going to match that. Now you got to pay this man 25 million, and that's where you start to get into this notion of Jeremy Grant or Cam Johnson. They're saying Jeremy Grant's looking on the tune of 30 million. But who are you paying? Are you overpaying for Cam Johnson by the tune of $5 to $7 million a year? I believe that in terms of fit, I feel like he is going to fit well with guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, who can pass really well as a big man. Asar Thompson's a playmaker. Killian Hayes, who's a playmaker. A guy whose mindset is knowing where to be on the court just to relieve the ball handlers.
Right.
That's what I like about him.
And you got to overpay for somebody. There is a Detroit tax. Because I always hear this from Pistons fans. Well, they paid too much for him. Well, yeah, that's how you got him. Because if you didn't, he wouldn't be here. So you do have to pay the Detroit tax or the Piston tax, however you want to look at it. But I will overpay for Cameron Johnson ahead of Jeremy Grant. I've seen Jeremy Grant, and I might be jaded. And it seems
A
like
lot of people are.
everybody likes him. But I just thought when he played here, he was playing for his next contract with somebody else. He was playing to show another team that he could play. Now, if he's coming back, maybe that'd be entirely different. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt, but I just didn't like what I saw.
I didn't either. I felt like because we have to be fair to that. His usage was hitting at between like 27 and 30% on the regular here in Detroit, which was just entirely too high for a guy like Jeremy Grant. And I believe that they tried to run the experiment to see, can he be this lead two-way guy like a Paul George, like a Kawhi Leonard? And though he can be one of the better two-way players, he needs to realistically be your third or fourth option offensively on a winning team. And I think that that's what he showed in Denver. When he was with Jokic, he wasn't one of those guys that just, me. He kind of played off of what the offense was doing around him. And then when they asked for him to kind of step up, he did it. Then with the Blazers, their coaching staff went to, let's get his usage right back down. So with Denver, he was sitting at about 22% usage. With Detroit, it was 27 to 30. With the Blazers, they took him right back down. And ironically, which I didn't expect, his three-point shooting went from 36% with Detroit to 40% plus with the Blazers. But I do agree with you in terms of the fit, the mindset that Cam Johnson plays with versus Jeremy Grant. I don't know if Jeremy Grant's style, even if he can blend in, I don't know if that style necessarily with the Sar Thompson here fits with this current group. It almost felt like Cam Johnson would know where to be on the court. Like, when we were playing basketball and you're running down, the point guard's running down and you're a shooter, just even in rec league, if you're a shooter, your mindset is to hedge from the kind of that top corner to the corner three-pointer. A guy like Jeremy Grant's decision might be to stay at that top corner and never hedge down because his whole mindset is ISO, or to cut in and it jams up the lane. And so it's like, yeah, from those standpoints of it, I think that Cam Johnson is going to be a good fit. I just kind of, you know, get a little bit hesitant over the dollar amount, but you're right. Whoever Detroit gets is going to be overpaid, whether it's restricted free agent, whether it's the Detroit tax, whether it's a combination of it all. They're going to find themselves in a very, very, very expensive situation. But
And you were bringing up usage rate and how it went down. Well, it was down for Denver and
in the
Portland.
Blazers, yeah.
But was there a joker on the Pistons?
Come on,
Last time I checked, no.
Nope.
So your usage rate is going to go down if you're playing with him. Was there a Damian Lillard on Lillard on the Pistons? No.
Nope.
So usage rate is going to not be what it is here. Yeah. So, a lot of times you pick up basketball, you know who the better players are. There's always some guy out there who's the third or fourth option. There's a guy who's willing to set some screens and play defense and get his shot now and then. And then there's the guy that just dribbles and just shoots as soon as he gets over half court. So the usage rate is going to be different.
With the pickup basketball analogy, this is what I'll put it. Because you can tell a guy all day long, hey, look, this is Cade and Ivy's team. But in pickup ball, when you walk into the gym, if you feel like you're that guy, you feel like you're that guy no matter what the plan is. And you're right. When we talk about the kind of nuances of this thing, and Troy continued to use that word nuance, and he said with the free agency, he doesn't want to sign people that can block. How does that play in the mind of Jeremy Grant when he comes here? The small ribbons of how his mind just naturally thinks as a player, and knowing I'm that guy. When it gets into like certain aspects of crunch time, when it gets into certain aspects of starting the game off, how does it truly mesh? When I think about the lineups they can put out there with guys like Sasser, Bojan, and Cam Johnson around the perimeter of Ivy and Cade, sometimes, those types of players in different lineups, it does make me a little bit more excited for the prospects of this team. But that's if I'm in belief of this young core, which I am. I do believe they just need to augment around them properly, allow them time to grow. It would have been good if Cade had last season and he and Ivy had the opportunity to mesh, because Troy Weaver said it best. We haven't seen these guys really play. We haven't, but I agree with you. I think Cam Johnson, in terms of if he's your overpay, he's the guy. If you kind of, swing and miss on him, a guy like Draymond, I don't necessarily know what the price tag would be, if it's going to be as high as a guy like Jeremy Grant, or if he falls somewhere in that Bojan Bogdanovic range to Cam Johnson range of 20 to 25 M. A low-cost option that I like was PJ Washington. I liked him, 24 years old. If the Pistons are looking not to break the bank, maybe going out and getting a couple guys like PJ Washington, Rui Hashimari, and such. But that's when you really believe in your young core, and I don't quite know if they're there yet, bro.
No, they're not. You know what? I am not in favor of bringing in young guys. I want somebody grizzled.
you ain't waste no words, bro.
No, but I mean, come on. We know they're young and they're talented and everything. So why bring in another youngster? That's why I was against using that first round pick. I'd rather, them bring in somebody who's 27, 28 years old. That, to me, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's people who are serious about winning. And, the Pistons, this may all work out at some point, but I think I have a sense of urgency because the Pistons have been rebuilding for a long time, and the fan base deserves more. Y'all can't, it's unfair to y'all out there who say, well, they got a good young core. Well, that's bullshit. Yeah, they got a good young core. So what's it doing for you now? 17 wins, 23 wins. And then people are going to get excited when they hit 35 wins. That's still bad. So that's why I I'm just not in favor of young guys. They got
I feel
enough
you,
young
man. You want
guys on this
NBA
team.
guys, and that's something that I've
Right.
kind of gone back and forth with as well. We need more NBA guys. Even if you like the young guys we have, I was having a discussion with somebody, and in our discussion, Isaiah Livers kind of got pushed out the rotation for me or to the end of it, not off the team, but just when you're talking about a solid 8 guys that you're going to run out there in the playoffs and to make a playoff push. Is Isaiah Livers one of those 8 guys in that lineup on a really good team? You know what I'm saying? Like that's where
That would be a no.
that's where I'm saying.
But for a middling, solid, competitive team, yeah, he could help you out.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. For right now, definitely he's going to be a player that you want. And you want those types of guys on your roster. Shout out to Darren McCarty, D-Mac, 4-time Stanley Cup champion. But
Looking like George Washington today.
love the hairdo.
With red hair.
With the red tips. I
Right.
like it, boy. Shout out to the Red Wings, man. I love it. I love it. But man, you're right. A guy like Isaiah Livers, as I guess we can get into this kind of upgrade or internal growth part. Is this somebody that we're going to keep, or is it somebody that we're upgrading as it relates to this bench? Because that's where I believe they have to make the biggest leaps forward. Their starting unit has Bojan in there as a vet, and they also have some other players like Alec Burks and whatnot that they can kind of mix in with that starting unit. But when you're talking about the bench guys, I really feel like there's some upgrades that they potentially have to make. Because if we're sitting here still, maybe in year 2, year 3, if Isaiah Livers hasn't made serious jumps and some of these players made serious jumps in their game, how does this team make a serious jump forward if they're not upgrading? So I do agree with you. That 27 years, that's I was kind of looking across the league at some of the guys. That 26, 27, 28 range is kind of where a lot of the free agents fall that I'm kind of believing can really move this Pistons squad into the next era of winning. Because you're right. If we want to be middling, not that the players we have are middling, but if we want to be middling, we've seen the results with the players, injuries or not. And we've seen how these players play. We can just take away the records. We know that we have to make an upgrade. We know that. And so I wanted to be able to go on the roster, ask you guys a couple of these things like, where on the roster, on this bench, what player, no matter if we love them or not, because, bro, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Detroit sports, whether they're a Hall of Fame player, whether their trajectory is that or not, we love and overlove on our sports players.
That's every city.
That's every
Of course
city.
they do.
Yeah.
And
We'll put them all in the Hall of Fame. We'll put them all their jerseys in the rafters.
right.
If you ask the fans, the whole 2004 starting 5 will be up there. I'm guilty.
Of course. But here. I'm gonna jump in this little pool of water. I'll tell you, guy that you talk about him a lot. You have to watch out for him this year is Beef Stew. He's really working on his game. He's going overboard, developing shots, being able to get his shot off, his footwork and stuff like that. Now, I always go back
That's
to
news, people.
I always have to, go. I hate to go old school, but I always bring up the Isaiah Thomas theory of basketball. Is during the off season, you add something to your game. So when you come back the next season, people say, I didn't know you can go to his left like that. I think Beef Stew is doing that. I mean, he hears that he doesn't want to be a bench player. He wants to be a starter. He wants to be a guy that helps his team. He's working on his footwork. He's working on his movement. He's working on his jump shot. His little baseline jumper. And so I think you're going to see a different player this year. Now, will he be able to develop
its internal growth?
Right.
You believe
will he
he's
be able to develop it enough in one off season to satisfy you? I don't know. But I think we're going to see a better player, a different player. So be careful.
I like that, actually. I like that. And Stu is not the guy you count out. That's why when we get into these aspects of starter or not versus on the team or not, I never question if Isaiah Stewart should be on this team. Stewart is the type of guy who you believe will always find and work himself into an aspect of helping your team and benefiting your team greatly. And with what you're telling me, if he can make those necessary strides as a 4 in this league, with the rest of his squad back, playing next to Duran, and with an apt 3, say if Asar's in there, bro, that defensive lineup of Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duran would wreak havoc, especially if Jaden Ivey can get some things figured out defensively. I like Cade Cunningham defensively. But that kind of is your future. Right now, obviously, we know Bojan's going to be plugged in there. but his defense is not going to be the best. And I think that that's where Isaiah Stewart has struggled. A lot of people haven't kind of been fair to him defensively. When you have wings and guards downhill on you
Mhm.
and you're already undersized in the paint, it's only going to spell disaster. But when you change that defender from Boyan to Asar Thompson, now you're not having a wing that you have to step up and try and defend or count for. You know, like when you have to play basketball and you're defending, and you know, man, the guy over there who I'm supposed to have his back, he's never gonna stand in front of his guy defensively. Just even mentally, when you play ball, you're like, you keep looking, you're just out of your game already. The '04 Pistons talked about how they knew they could depend on everybody to do their job. And that if they needed help, it wasn't going to leave somebody else so wide open because you saw the way that they rotated, the way they continued to get after it. You know, so yeah, I believe that your comments on Isaiah Stewart are one. I think that honestly is the biggest X factor. I believe that Jalen Duren's the one that we're going to see take the biggest leap between this year and next year. But I feel like Isaiah Stewart, if he can take an incremental step forward on some of these skills that he's already shown, 3-point shooting, versatility offensively and defensively in the perimeter, and if he can improve on honestly keeping people from grabbing those rebounds over his head. I don't really care about necessarily his blocks. He's stout enough of a defender to kind of make it tough for people whether he's getting a block or not, you know, in one-on-one situations. I want to see it. Like, that kind of excites me, the things that you just stated about Stu, because we know how he works. And if we know that he's specifically working to still kind of make this push on the back of improvement, not just somebody who's going out there and just like we saw with Andre Drummond. I'm working on threes this summer, no improvement. I'm working on threes this summer, season hit, no improvement. I'm working on threes this summer and a rap album. And then the next season, threes and more rap albums, and none of it's improving.
And you know what? And doing DJing up in Central Michigan.
And none of it's improving.
That's not improvement. That's not working on your game.
That's not working on your games. But with Stu, we can see the year to year improvement in this game. Even if it's like you said, not as fast. If it's not as fast, that's where the window thing's getting into play, though. And that's why I believe Troy Weaver believes in his team, but they might not show necessarily the results that people are hoping to show as early because of a mix of injuries and how quickly or how long it might take for guys like Stewart to reach their full potential. I think that with the full squad in place like this, where you now know Stu doesn't necessarily have to be defending the Giannis's of the world. Now you understand he can kind of go out there and just defend the 4 or even a slow-footed 5 or put him in a better position defensively because you got better defensive talent around him. I think we're going to see a better Stu. He doesn't have to think as much on that side of the court, and offensively, he can just roam. I called him at the beginning of the season like a Tasmanian devil. There were times where when the Pistons made their 10-14 run at the end of Cage's rookie season with Jeremy Grant, where Isaiah Stewart was just able to, on both ends of the court, just do whatever he wanted to do. Be there for putbacks, be there for tip-ins, be there to just fight for rebounds. But the next seasons, when there was a lot more put on him, a lot more opportunity because the talent was just they lost a lot of NBA talent. They lost Kelly Olynyk, they lost Jeremy Grant and others. They lost a lot of NBA talent going into this new era with Duren and Ivy. Yeah, to me, it just put too much responsibility on him with not enough help around him. So Stewart is going to be the question mark to me. Though, like I said, Duren can take the biggest leap. I believe that Stewart is somebody that can be more than just a stabilizer and somebody who, if what you're saying is true, can actually be one of those guys that can make a couple all-stars here or reach the pinnacle that he set for himself of Al Horford.
Right. You know? The one thing about the Pistons defense, normally when teams play bad defense, it's a lack of effort. And sometimes that is the case with the Pistons. But I think more than that, they just weren't big enough. They're a bigger team today than they were this time last year.
Yeah.
With Durham and Wiseman,
Asar even.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
They just.
You're right.
I mean to stop you, but you got me pinned back into the paint. I can't do anything about it. So, or I'm in good position for a defensive rebound, but you're just reaching over me and taking the stuff away from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I see with them.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I was saying, I'm going to, right now, I want to see Stu push. And that's what I said. Like, yeah, he's the type of guy who's never going to stop pushing. He's a guy who's always going to try And I think he already has get more out of what he probably was supposed to, his trajectory. I think he's kind of already hitting above his potential. He's already a decent stretch four. Whether he's a starter or off the bench, that's what's to be determined. But he's already, in my opinion, shown that he's the type of guy that you kind of believe in. And you know what? Whether we have him here at camp or whether he's kind of off on his own, he's going to be putting in the work. That doesn't necessarily mean that Troy is going to just keep him. That also means that that could be playing up his trade value, like with Sadiq Bey. We heard all the stories, and he was up in the mountains. He was getting in tune with his body and his mind, and doing all types of new things. And they had to tell him, "Hey, Sadiq, stop working. You work so much." And what that ultimately did, I think, was made him an ultimate asset to the Pistons, no matter if they decide to keep him or trade him. And I think that's what Troy. That's the genius of Troy when we're talking Troy Weaver season, is that so far he's been able to flip his players for something. He's been able to flip them for at least a promise or a hope, and he's been able to do it for kind of the guys that he wants on his squad.
Now let me bring up one other thing, because all you little Woodward Pistons people
Let me know, man.
make fun
us,
of me when I say this, but I like guys with big butts.
Big, he cannot lie.
Fat, solid asses. The reason is because when you stick that sucker out, a 6'8" player turns into a 6'6" player. You're defending 3 feet of space. When you get that big ass, you're defending 5 feet. Yeah. So get something like that, like Rick Mahorn.
You mean like Rick Mahorn? What, Corliss Williamson had that a little bit, man. He had a
big ass. Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace, man.
Big ass.
We need to get like some bruisers, man. That's what you're telling me.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? I put out an article on What We're Sports, man. And this was about at the beginning of the season. I was just assessing. After the first, I said I want to look at the first month of the season and give me the next week, because Cade had gotten injured. I wanted to see some things. And I was like, you know what? Cade or not, these are the 3 things the Pistons needed. They needed an absolute scorcher of a score. Somebody who could just come in, and this is it. This is in there, man, and just be a gunner. And I think that Marcus Sasser might be similar to that guy. Then we needed a wing, a 3-and-D wing. We had to replace what we lost with Jeremy Grant. And then the last thing that I wanted, that I said this team needs, an absolute bruiser. And not the Isaiah Stewart type. I'm talking about the 6'11" type, who, when they set that screen and they put their shoulder in, is actually popping somebody in their jaw.
Now, when you wrote your article, did you use the term big butt? I'm gonna guess
I didn't
you did
use
not.
that one. I didn't
Why
use
not?
the term big butt, man. I you know what? I'm gonna quote you now in the next article when we talk about this. So it will be in there.
Right.
It will be in there, because you're right. They need that. They need that guy. Like I'm saying, think about the difference between a pick and roll where your shoulder, when you're setting a pick, is clocking somebody in the face versus hitting somebody in the arm.
Right.
There's a difference there, man. We used to see guys like Rasheed Wallace. Honestly, when they knew Rasheed was setting a pick and Ben Wallace was setting a pick, or even Jason Maxill, man, people didn't want J-Max setting a pick.
No.
Do we got guys on that squad where we're like, dog, I don't want him to set the pick. Bro, Marcus Morris, we didn't want the Morris twins. People didn't want them setting picks. We don't even got a guy like that on the squad no more.
No, they're already feigning when they're setting the pick. They're already doing like this, like, oh, I don't want to hit him.
You're right. We need them bruisers, bro. Like Andre Drummond, he set some mean screens. Marvin Bagley, let me be fair. When Marvin Bagley first got here, he set some mean screens, and he hasn't been able to play with Cade Cunningham or guard that realistically utilized that pick and roll enough. But Marvin Bagley is a guy who, when guys, when he set that pick, he was wide open for those lobs. In that first year for Cade Cunningham, that's what kind of ignited their offense. When Marvin Bagley was traded here, Jeremy Grant came back from injury, Kelly Olynyk came back from injury, Sadiq Bey was hitting for 50 balls, and Killian Hayes had that 13-game stretch where he was playing out of his mind, man. And they were looking pretty good. It's what kind of built that hope going into the Jaden Ivey Jalen Duren draft. But you are right, man. You are right. I see sleep is optional. Said Bagley can't stay healthy, man. That's the issue there. Bagley presents some things. People say he can't stretch the floor. He can't shoot the 3, but he can keep the floor pretty spaced. People know if Bagley has it on the corner, he can hit the kind of pump fake and put his back to the basket. He can pump fake and actually dribble around guys, and he's done that. There was a question I asked him. I was like, I see these wrinkles that you guys are doing where you're actually stretching the floor, because the floor knows if I don't get out there, Bagley would take a couple dribbles in and actually can hit the mid-range shot. That's a part of his repertoire. Whether I don't know why he doesn't employ it much, but towards the end of the season, he seemed to do it more, almost as if they were either trying to see what he could be or whatnot. But in that pick and roll game, when you got a guy like that, you might not need him to be a guy that hits the three. Soon as guys kind of when he set that pick, they stuck. Cade
Mhm.
Cunningham was wide open, man. That's when mid-range Cade became a thing. So I like Bagley, but goodness gracious, he can't stay healthy. Obviously, it'd be dope if he could hit the three every now and then or be at least opportunistic with it. When we needed it, be somebody who was reliable with it. I look at it almost like Shaq. When Shaq was like, look, when y'all need me to hit the free throws, I'm gonna hit it. I wish Bagley at least had a three-point shot like that, because then I think it would make him the prototypical bench big who could come in and spell the 4 or the 5. He's a big body. When he's engaged, he's getting blocks and things of that nature, but I just don't see that level of engagement like that. And I don't know if it's the injuries or if it's the play style or whatnot. But it's going to be interesting to see what Monty gets out of these guys, man.
He might be a guy that likes his game and is settled for his game, and he may be afraid to step out of his comfort zone. So that's why you're not seeing 3-point shots. He should have been working on that all season. So
You're right.
it's too late now.
You're right on that. I mean, because it's the difference between what we're talking about with Isaiah Stewart, who
Right.
you're able to go and give the reports of what we know he's doing because he's actually doing it.
Mhm.
And that is, man, it might be a position now to where the Pistons were trying to figure out then how do we utilize Marvin Bagley on this roster and within this offense? So I don't know. I don't know where they go. Obviously, when you're talking about upgrade or internal growth, Marvin Bagley's a guy that I like, but obviously he's somebody who I don't know if he's. I want to stop using the word necessarily expendable, but I believe one of our movable assets. I believe Marvin Bagley is one of those guys that I would
He's
like
expendable and movable.
to see. Terry's he's just gonna say it.
I'm going to bring up Pistons fans' favorite player,
Talk to
Scottie
me.
Pippen. Scottie Pippen, once upon a time, couldn't shoot a jump shot. He could be wide open from 10 feet or 12 feet. Let him shoot the jumper because he's going to miss.
Yeah.
Then he's like, okay, this is not working. So he spent, I think it was like 2-3 off seasons really working on his jumper. And all of a sudden it was smoother. It was going in the basket. It looked different. So if you are an NBA player,
Yeah.
you should be able to add something to your game. And the only reason you don't is because you're too busy having a good time. You're in Vegas. It's like Kobe Bryant. When you joined the Lakers, Kobe said, let's go work out at 4 o'clock. So everybody thought, okay, we show up at 4 p.m. And Kobe said, no, it's going to be 4 a.m. Because we're going to make sure that there's no distractions, that you're focused. It's the first thing you do in the morning, blah, blah, blah. Kobe Bryant wasn't great because he's just great. He worked on that.
Added stuff to his game
Mhm.
over the years. Yeah.
Right.
And I feel you, man. Them 4 o'clock practices, those 4 a.m. ones hit differently. I remember college, man. That was the first time where we had consistent like 4 a.m. We had 4 days, bro. 4 a.m. we had to be up to start running. We ran with the cross country team, bro. Yeah, we were at it,
brutal.
man. I think it was like 8 miles. I forgot what it was, the whatever the kilometers were, whatever. But yeah, it was like 8 miles we had to run, and then they were like, "All right, go to your dorms, or you can rest right here." We got practice in an hour.
So you know what happens with wimps like me?
What?
Quit. I'm
Oh,
done.
there were days I was like, "What are we doing?"
So if you stick through something like that, then you're serious about the game.
I loved it. I loved it, man. Like it changed something inside of me as well. It brought us closer as a team. We ran with the cross country team, and honestly, we got a better appreciation for the track and cross country guys, man. They were basically training us, teaching us, kicking our butts, and we just instantly realized, though people show up to our games, we are definitely not the class of athlete these guys are just yet.
Right.
It was different, man, but it added something. Those 4 o'clocks hit different. But you're right, those guys dedicated to it. They are dedicated to it, and they understand when to go out there early in the morning and get after it. And I like that's the vibe that I get from this squad. When you look at Ashton, the trainer, shout out to him, Cade's cousin and trainer, and Cannon Cunningham, one of their main phrases is, while they sleep, we work. These guys, and I know it, they're basketball heads. They have connections to guys getting drafted who have just gotten drafted in this NBA draft, like Anthony Black, among others. They have connections to all types of NBA players, even in the past, that they've either coached, trained, coached on AAU teams, helped usher into colleges and such. That's just a little bit different, man. It's
It
a little
is.
bit
And the
different.
dangerous thing, if you don't do those 4 a.m. workouts, guess what? Somebody's doing it in Chicago, somebody's doing it in Charlotte,
Ooh.
somebody's doing it in New York. And so they are getting better. And while you sitting on your ass having a breakfast sandwich.
And we wonder why some of these teams just improve like that. We talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers and like the arc of improvement they made, and can the Pistons kind of go from this middling 20 to 30 win team to now we're 6 seed in the playoffs. When you look at their team, man, they got a lot of guys that work and they have professionals there. Kevin Love and some of their vets were true professionals, man. When you look at their young guys, they were those work hard guys, those go hard guys. It's just I get it. They didn't just make a jump. It was like these guys worked at that. And I do, like I said, I do believe we got those guys. Jaden Ivey, he's one of those guys. You keep hearing it even from his college days. They couldn't keep him out the gym. Jalen Duren is a guy who I think we all had some questions about, where we didn't question who he was going to be as a player. We just wanted to know who he was going to be as a player. We didn't know how does he work. People were talking about, well, we don't know about his motor, maybe this, that, and the other. He's young, he's raw. We don't know what he is. The Pistons said, no, no, no. We know what this guy is. So it seems like they're making it a plan, bro, to bring in the guys that they know are going to work hard. That's the reason why we can have kind of the reports about even a guy like a Sadiq Bey. One of the first things James Wiseman said is, look, all I'm trying to do is be on the court and work because that's all that I know. We got to talk to him as a part of the um, rare access fan kind of appreciation thing that the Pistons did this year. And shout out to Sean Murphy, who actually got to host that with James Wiseman.
Sean.
Yeah, Big Sean, man. Shout out to him. And shout out to Half Court. You guys definitely go and look at the content they have. Troy Sergey, Sean Murphy, Jeff Iafredi today. They sat down with the legend Rod Beard. And it's I love what they do over there. So definitely check that out when it comes out. I don't know if it's 11 or 12 that it's gonna drop, but be tuned into From Half Court, definitely. But look, there's the one guy we gotta talk about. There's one guy we got to. When we talking about upgrade or internal growth in terms of keeping them, Killian Hayes.
Mm.
We got
Yeah,
an increase in salary. It's gonna be a couple million, almost somewhere between 1.5 and $2 million increase in salary. The cap hold next year is gonna be 10 million on the roster. What are we doing, Killian Hayes? Is that a guy that we believe, you know what, we can keep him? His trajectory is something in which we know he can get to where we want him to get, at least off the bench. As at least at worst, can Killian Hayes be our fourth guard on a winning team?
He could. I think I'd pass on him.
Hmm.
I'm just not impressed with him. Yes, I know he can pass and he can sort of run an offense, but he ain't got that oomph as far as I'm concerned. If there's a fight on the floor, is Killian Hayes going to be there kicking somebody's ass?
But look,
He had his one moment. His one moment. Yeah, I give you that. But somebody pops Cade Cunningham upside the head. What is Killian Hayes gonna do?
You know what? I stopped laughing now. I feel you.
Right.
But
And the other thing is,
what would Sasser do? But we instantly believe that Marcus Sasser would probably be a guy that's there on the scene.
right.
I feel you on that one.
And you can't continue to give a guy pity points. I think people here in Detroit give Killian Hayes the pity points. Like he'll have a game. So Killian had 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. Man, wasn't he great tonight? Hell no, it wasn't great.
You're right.
He made 30% of his shots. So that's pity points to me. I need him to be a dog. And watching the NBA draft, everybody got up there with the little red suits and purple suits and top hats and stuff. They said, I'm a dog. Is Killian Hayes a dog?
He showed some flashes that got me excited last year. And then when the season hit, he even had the coaches saying, we just don't know what happened. His mentality was that he wanted to be the defensive leader of this team. And it's just like, man, you got every tool, man. He has it. He has the ability. But But the reason why it probably hasn't cashed in is because he hasn't answered that question, or either he has. Does he have that dog? Man, I want to still have hope. I really do. We've seen him on his good days. He's not a guy who we're sitting here even saying he needs to go and add X to his game. We're sitting here saying that guy's mind needs to be fixed.
Right.
That's the sad part with Killian Hayes, man. It's like these other players we want to believe that they can get to a place in their skills. But it's like I believe that Cade Cunningham with his skill set would become an all NBA player before I can believe that Killian Hayes will unlock his mind to just let him be a decent bench player. Like I'm hoping that he figures something out this year. I know what the Pistons said when they drafted him, it was going to be some parts of a project, though, that he could come in and play make right away. But you're right, man. With Killian Hayes, I want to ask you guys, man, in the comments as well. Man, is this the guy that you can depend on his internal growth going forward? Or is this a position where you believe we need to upgrade with Killian Hayes? Obviously, with Stu and some of these other guys, we're like, you know what? These guys are people we believe internal growth wise, they're going to make the jump. But with Killian Hayes, you said you don't know if you can believe in it.
See, I don't even need that much out of him. Here,
Yeah, talk to me.
I would say keep him if you could depend on him running the offense the last 3 minutes of the first quarter and maybe the first 3 minutes of the second quarter, vice versa in the third and fourth. Just his little, I got these 15 minutes. This is my team. I'm running the stuff. I can't even say that from him on a consistent basis.
Man.
That's not asking a lot.
I want to defend him, bro. People know me, man. Like I want to defend him. All I can talk about it now at this point is what I hope to see from him. I feel like the moves that were made in this draft helped him. It gives him Asar Thompson, Marcus Sasser off the bench, a little bit more athleticism. Guys who are kind of in this modern aspect of it. It upgrades some guys. It upgrades Kojo and Hami, Kojo and Roddy Magruder. The guys he was playing with off the bench, the guys he was coming off the bench with. He's getting a little bit more help. They're gonna have a little bit more shooting on this squad. If he can get this thing figured out, it's just like, goodness gracious, come on, Kill. Come on, bro. Like, get this thing figured out. There were some moments last year in the preseason where they played him in this Cade Cunningham role, but they had their full roster there. Towards the end of that preseason, when some guys got injured and they had to kind of switch some things up, is where I realized he significantly suffered realistically when the talent level went down and it seemed like the defense knew, flustered the heck out of him. It seemed like the defense just knew. You get him gone. Look at the guys, other guys on this floor right now. Who else is he playing with? So it's just like,
do you really need to guard him? Do you need to
that's
guard
what I'm
him?
saying. Like, guys got to a point where it was just like, let's just fluster him. We got to a point where they were just looking at him.
You do when Killian Hayes is shooting a jump shot, do you do like my girl from Caitlin for Iowa does like this?
That's so good. Just the kind
of go ahead.
And that's the thing.
Is that what you do?
Hey, but you know what? When he goes into the gym to practice, you know what I know we're going to see from Killian? Knocking down everything. That's the point. He has to get to the point where this don't mess with him. Get to the point where you go out there, like when he had all his dogs with him, he moves differently when the whole team is there. Look at his preseason. I keep telling people, go back and look at his preseason. People say, well, it was a talent. No, man, because the Knicks came out there and they were playing hard. Tibbs teams were trying to boat race him. Killian was still saucing. Like, he was doing things. As soon as that talent went down, and it was like, all right, Killian, we need you to be the 7th pick. He just kind of crumbled. And this is what I'll juxtapose it with. When they went, because remember, they turned to Killian first. They didn't turn to Jaden Ivey first. When K went down, they turned to Killian first. But when Killian didn't work out, they turned to Jaden Ivey. And I'm grateful for Troy for being true to the hierarchy there and allowing people their time. Jaden Ivey didn't crumble under that pressure of being a number one. Actually, his assists went up. There was a stretch where he was averaging like 11 assists a game. And during a large stretch, a bigger stretch of that time, like 8 assists per game, bro. He didn't crumble. His scoring went up. He took advantage of having the ball and the faith. Obviously, there's some things Ivy needs to do defensively. But if Killian can just have half of the improvement that Ivy showed from a mental standpoint when he got the ball in his hands and said, you're now the guy, I think that we're seeing a guy who is very, very beneficial to the Pistons off the bench, depending on what they sign him for.
Right. But, there's a big difference between Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey can't do it every time, but Jaden Ivey, when he steps on that floor, I'm kicking your ass tonight, and you're gonna like it. I don't get that from Killian. Killian,
You're right.
I hope to be competitive tonight and maybe hit a couple buckets.
You're right. You're right. Now I can't defend it. I can't. All I can do is throw out the challenge, man. I see my man Tone Capone. I see a lot of the regulars in here, man. Tone Capone, Chuck Brewer, Scant. I see you guys, man. Thank you all for being here. Jeff, Pistons fan, 11. Jeff missed everything as always, man. He's crushing everything that he's doing right now. I think I saw Mr. Ray and some of the other regulars. He told me, stop it, Kool-Aid. It's look, I'm trying to see the best here. Is getting to the end of the line with Killian Hayes. I still believe in him. But you're right. In terms of this squad making a step forward, if I'm sitting here having these standards that I'm having with Beef Stew, that he might not be a starter. He might be somebody that we bring off the bench on a starting winning team. As currently, that would mean Killian Hayes is not somebody I even see in the rotation on a absolute playoff winning team. If he could
he's like your 12th guy or 11th guy. Maybe
that's what I'm saying. Like the role Corey Joseph would play if this squad was winning last year.
Or a shorter version of Chuck Nevitt.
That's
the victory cigar.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like Killian, and it's not even from a basis of skill. It's just from a basis of, bro, can you work it out?
No, skill wise, he's a rotational player because you can see it, but then he's just a cutie pie out there. That's what he is. He's a cutie pie. It's I don't know if Monty Williams can unlock this or an assistant coach can unlock this. Maybe they need to have Rasheed Wallace around more often. And I know she works with big guys, but maybe she could be over the corner and say, "Look, you better get it together,
bro." I loved Coach She with the Pistons. It was the most aggressive and, in my opinion, the best year of Andre Drummond. Even though Dre made All-NBA third team later with Blake Griffin, and that year they made the playoffs, I thought that the best Andre Drummond we saw was that year with Blake Griffin. He was mean, he was demonstrative, and it wasn't just him. That squad did that. People keep acting like he just worked with just him. That squad played differently. That kind of all-out energy that Rod Beer was talking about earlier, and you guys will see it on the pod at 1, that he wants to see this squad play with and these young guys play with. It's like she brought that. And if you can have him even situationally come in and work with a guy like Killian Hayes, I don't care, man. Get them. We're not even seeing you talking about skill or positions right now. If it's talking about unlocking the mentality of always go hard, I'm sorry, we ain't seen that any better than guys like Rasheed Wallace in terms of how vocal he is as well as how talented he was on the court.
Yeah, I really believe that he can unlock that. I'd hire him. Who am I?
Man, you Terry Foster legend.
Yeah.
Well, but look,
I still fault him for leaving Robert Horry. But other than that,
Tom Capone
I mean,
said,
but he sometimes you need that coach that seems like he's just nuts on the, Monty Williams seems like a more mild-mannered guy. Monty Williams can get them, in a collective. He can get the X's and O's, the mindset. But then Rasheed, you sick him on individual players and say, this shit ain't acceptable. Let's roll. What's happening?
Like Killian.
Right.
Because this was one of the trends I wanted to follow, and I see people posting his stats and such. And you got to understand, shout out KC Spaz Comedy, said Killian, 10 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 1.5 steals last year. The problem was that we couldn't depend on that on a nightly basis. It was a situation where I wanted to see who is Killian once he hits a slump after 2 games. Early on in the season, he was able to bust it and come back out and realistically play to the level that we had seen him before those slumps. But then it got to the point where the slumps became 5 games, 10 games. He started the season like that. And it was just like, you know what? We need to know we can depend on who Killian Hayes is supposed to be every single time he touches that floor. Even if his averages are 10 and 6, that's not the problem. It's can we get that from Killian Hayes every time he steps on the court?
But you know what? You can squeeze a couple extra points in your stats when you're getting your asses kicked every night. If you're in tight games and everything, you might average 8 points. But then if you getting rolled by 30 and teams don't respect you, they'll ignore you and you can get up to 10, 11 points a game.
He's going to be the interesting one, bro. He's going to be the interesting one. And I agree with you, man. And they said it last year, if the coaches didn't state it, then it wouldn't be something that we're sitting here saying is a major factor. And it is that mindset. If they said that last year they were looking for a way, it's like a switch was flipped between preseason, how he was playing, and when they hit the regular season, they got to figure something out. And they said it was something to do with up here, man. It's gonna be interesting with him. But I feel like, man, we had some good basketball conversation and talk today. Talked about some free agencies. We talked about the strategy. We talked about the draft picks. We talked about the guys on the roster. We talked about the fact that it is realistically Troy Weaver season, man. We got the Troy Weaver Buffs on the Woodward Sport Buffs exclusive.
And don't forget the big butts. Talk
And
about
the
that.
big butts. We talked about the big butts, and we cannot lie. And I agree. We need the big butt bruisers.
Mhm.
The big butt bruisers, man.
At least
That's what we
one.
need. That's at least one. At least one. Man, if this team could find a way to get who Troy Weaver talked about in the press conference, off to the side, he talked about being the guy who said we need to get Steven Adams when he was with OKC, saying that it was a game where he had like two points and 4 rebounds, and the guy's like, "What? He only averages 4 and 6, and he had 2 and 4 in this game." He said, "I don't care. That's the type of guy that you need on your squad when
Yeah,
you're talking about building.
Aquaman. Bring Aquaman.
Bring
here.
Aquaman here. Like we need somebody like that, bro. Just somebody." But listen, I appreciate you guys for being here. Definitely put in the comments in the comment section, not just the live chats. Tell me what you guys are doing. Are you keeping or are you upgrading Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, or any of these guys on the bench? Let us know. Also, go and leave a like on the stream. We appreciate you guys for being here. We're going to try and do a lot more content during the week as well, especially in the summer. I'm going to be trying to lock down these 10 to 11s, Monday to Friday. It might be a little spotty for a little bit. We're going to get in here, and we're also going to talk about some other sports as well. So definitely, if we got the legend here, this is a person who covered the Lions for what, 20 years?
2 decades
2 decades.
and plus.
We're going to get into it. We're going to have some of our other beat reporters, some of our other writers and such dropping by so that we can just honestly talk about the sports teams that we love. Detroit Pistons, Tigers, Red Wings, and the Lions. I appreciate you guys from being here, man. This was dope. Somebody said sign Batman and Spider-Man on this team. I would like that, honestly. I love Batman. Spider-Man, I don't know, but I like Batman. I know we got the Cade Crusader. You guys will see a return of him very soon. But before we close up here, I want to
We're calling him the Cade Crusader.
the Cade Crusader,
Wow.
bro. Let's rock.
We're desperate.
But
it's cute.
I love you.
I kind of like it.
Ruler got the design with him in the Batman outfit, his head just kind of exposed with the Renaissance Center behind him. So how appropriate. The Cade Crusader.
It's cute.
We're desperate for a star, man. We are. Let me get this drum roll, though, here for this legend over here, Terry Foster, and we're going to sign out, man. Appreciate you guys for being here. Hope everybody has a blessed day. For Woodward Sports and for Woodward Pistons, let's get this thing closed up. Hey, yo! Shout out to this legend over here, man. Terry Foster. Look, just Hall of Fame guy. We got to get you in there this year, right? Nominated. You guys got to vote when you start seeing the stuff go out. Appreciate you guys for being here. Till next time, you all.